This is the Rebel Scum Podcast. You listen to your podcasts. Every week, Brock and James talk the latest rumors, news, and theories from a galaxy far, far away. Support us on Patreon for exclusive offers and join the Star Wars discussion. Patreon.com/Rebel Scum Podcast. Here are your hosts.
Always Scum.
Rebel Scum Podcast. I'm Brock.
I'm James.
James. Boom. That wasn't a delay, James. I was just confused which way you are when you're not in the same room as me. And that's always this way.
Always.
Always.
5 years.
5 years.
5 years.
Whew. Look at us. 2 weeks in a row. 2 weeks in a row we're doing an episode. What fun. What fun. What's
We
new,
haven't
James?
missed that many weeks. I think we haven't missed that many weeks.
No, it's
you
summertime.
need to quit your job is what you need to. You need to quit your
Quit
job.
James.
What, do you even need a job?
Oh, absolutely not.
Let's be
I
honest.
just live off my gold bars and I jump into my vault of gold coins that doesn't break my face, a la Scrooge McDuck. Boom.
People don't know this. Your name is actually Brock McDuck. Your real name is Brock McDuck.
Of Clan McDuck. I am the Highlander. Woo.
So we 8 years on doing Rebel
8 years.
Scum podcast. How much do you miss not having to do a podcast? Are you ever like, oh, I gotta talk Star Wars today?
No, this is the thing. It's funny. It's like, and you and I are like, how do we like shine up this show, right? Like, and it's not a matter of like, it's more of like, oh, let's just jazz it up a bit. But it's like, I still enjoy doing the podcast to the point that it's just like habitual, if that makes sense. It's just like, yeah, we do a podcast. It's like sometimes I forget. It's just like, it's not even a pod. It's like you live 10,000 years away in a galaxy far, far away. So it's like, this is how I see you. So it's just like, it's not even a matter of like, I have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to bring Star Wars. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, it's sort of a thing. But no, I think it's good. It's just, keeping relevant.
I was thinking a lot about how YouTube has changed
Yeah.
in 8 years. Like it's COVID threw it for a loop. It's kind of back to where it was before COVID. But but I mean, even like in the world of Star Wars, how much has changed. Like there weren't, people don't believe me, but I think if you go back, I think you can verify what I'm saying. There weren't a ton of podcasts on YouTube. There were a ton of Star Wars podcasts, but there weren't a ton of Star Wars podcasts on YouTube. There are now, but back then there weren't a lot. And there are a lot of, and there still are like theory videos, like little fun little videos like that. And there were more. There were less then than there are now, but there were quite a few. And they were a lot of fun I don't know. It was a fun time back then.
Yeah.
Because we didn't know what we were doing either when we first. Well, we didn't know what we were doing with the podcast when we first did that. And I remember showing up and you had microphones like taped to a desk. You're like, "Let's go!"
Let's
But
go.
you actually, that's a joke. But you actually had equipment and you were very excited to do it. And we did. But do you remember our second episode? Our second week of doing it was the Rogue One trailer during the Michael Phelps race. Do you remember that?
During the Olympics.
Yeah.
Two Olympics ago.
2 Olympics ago. Can you believe it?
Yeah.
Take that, Simone Biles.
Take it. You weren't even there yet, I don't think.
Yeah. Yeah, she was.
Oh, was she?
She was winning.
Wow.
She was winning some goals.
Yeah.
Actually, no. Yeah, she was. Yeah, she was. We haven't been doing it for that long. But it's fun. I look forward to doing it. I like talking. Sometimes it's like, what are we going to talk about?
Yeah.
And sometimes there's a lot to talk about, and that's when Aaron's like, "What are you guys even going to talk about?" I'm like, "Ha, you're not in the know." So yeah, but like there are weeks where you're like, "What the heck are we going to discuss?" Because you and I, we don't like to talk about like the political nonsense of Star Wars either. Like the, which in the truth is, if we did, we'd probably get higher numbers because it would be like the most clickbaity of clickbaits. But like neither one of us want to. And we talked about early on, I don't know if you remember, but we were like, let's stay away from like negative for the sake of negative.
Yeah.
And it really is, I think mostly it's just be like true to what we think and just be genuine, right? Because look, there's a lot of disingenuine, but we're just who we are. And because people are always like, we're the positive podcast. And I'm like, are you? Like, what does that mean? Like, what if something wasn't very good? Like, what if it just wasn't good? What if you weren't crazy about the twins in the Acolyte, Brock? What if that storyline just didn't resonate with you? That might be one of my favorite moments in 8 years, though, was in that one episode when you came on after, and I'm talking to Heidi and Desi, and I'm just like, the twins just didn't resonate. I just couldn't get involved. And then you come on, you're like, I think the twins were spectacular. And it's just like perfect. It was hilarious.
Yeah, it's the type of character growth that should be in the first episode to win you over, not the last episode. So I'm still reeling from your statement of the Acolyte is a YA novel. I'm like, it is. That makes a lot of sense. Actually explains a lot of things.
I think like I got that vibe from it from the trailers kind of gave me that vibe, but I wasn't believing it. And then
horny, but not knowing what to do with it. You know what I mean? I was like, that's exactly what this show is. That's amazing.
I think which is, and when you look at it from that perspective, I think it becomes something different. And I think you can swallow it.
Yeah.
If you're having trouble swallowing it, I think it's easier to swallow. By the way, I'm wearing it's a holiday in Canada, so I'm wearing my Stormtroopers on the beach shirt. Stormtroopers on the. What's yours? You got Yoda riding a tauntaun? Sick.
From Uniqlo.
You're very small on my screen, so I saw like Yoda's head, and then I couldn't tell what that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. Target.
Uniqlo.
Oh, I hate that place because I love it, but I hate it because I don't.
You'll have one nearby.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's the bummer of that place.
There's one that's not too far from me, actually, to be completely honest with you. I mean, it's far enough that I'm not going to go there.
Yeah.
But it's sometimes I work very close to it. I'll say that.
Gotcha.
It's in Oshawa. It's in the mall. That's
exactly.
I'm like, don't want to go. Well, that's the other thing. I also don't want to go there. No offense, anybody from Oshawa. Nobody listens. They don't have internet there.
You know what? Offense to people from Oshawa. There, I said it. Come at me.
I hope they do. We have the whoopers. How dare you? What were we talking about today? Star Wars.
Yeah.
What? Okay, no. I think this is a legit question because I think since the Disney purchase, which I think is getting tiring to say.
Yeah.
Actually, I want to ask you a question before we get into the topic. It is kind of
sounds like the Louisiana purchase. It's like we sold you Florida. I'm like, oh, that's kind of insane.
It's been 12 years. It's kind of like it's been long enough. But people, do you take offense when people say Disney Star Wars? Are you someone that's like, no, it's just Star Wars. Don't say Disney Star Wars.
No, because you know what? I don't feel outside of this podcast. Do I hear that often? Like, I don't think normies use that as much, at least the normies I'm interacting with. But if I do hear it, I don't take offense. It's just it's like a time marker. It's like there's Star Wars and there's Disney Star Wars.
Yeah, that's how I use it. I think I try to call it like the Disney era of Star Wars because it is. I think if you like 77 to 2024 Star Wars, that's fair. But I also think in 2012 it changed because it was all George Lucas.
Yeah.
Aside from the books that he was like, I don't recognize those as anything other than books. To whoever had an idea, basically. So it is different. It's a different time. But anyway, since 2012, we've gotten 5 movies, which is one less than George Lucas gave us in like 30, 40 years. 5, and then a bunch of streaming stuff,
Yeah.
and whatnot. And I just think, and I want to talk a bit about that because I think we've gotten a ton of Star Wars in a short amount of time. But let's talk a little bit about what has worked and a little bit about what has not worked. But remember, we're a positive podcast, so we won't talk about this. Let's talk about all of it, though. Well, I mean, and I think there's been stuff that has really hit, and there's been stuff that has really sunk. And the same could be, look, and I'll call a spade a spade. The same could be true of when George Lucas had Star Wars. It's like, some stuff really hit. And so it's not just Disney's Bob Iger, Kathleen Kennedy ruining it. But I think it's fair to talk about some stuff that we've liked over the 12 years that we've had, that this has been a thing, and things that we haven't liked. And I'm not going to mention the twins again. I just, you know what? I'm not even joking. I'm not going to mention them, Brock, but they're so like inconsequential to everything that I'm just like, I'm kind of indifferent to them at this, like after like, no, it's gone. I'm like, which is my problem with the show is I still don't know why we watched that show. Like, what was the point of that show?
I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my. But anyway, some stuff that's worked and some stuff that hasn't worked in Star Wars. What strikes you first? We'll stick with the positive first.
Yeah. Okay.
So what's hit you? What's hit you first? Like first thing that comes to your mind that you're like, that worked.
I think in the broad scheme of things, having a team work on things, it's not just one person per se calling the shots, though a lot of people like to blame Kathleen Kennedy for stuff. But it's like, having your Filoni, having your Favreau, and then having like the Mandalorian experiment of like, you have a show. I mean, it's not novel. All shows are like that. You have a showrunner, and then you have a whole bunch of people that direct each one or write each one, sort of thing. So like, I think like Mandalorian showed that like, yeah, this doesn't need. It proves that you can have a Star Wars that doesn't have to have one captain. It can have someone sort of up on top saying you delegating, which I feel like Favreau did a lot of that. But then you can have other creative outlets involved. Like I'm not going to talk like I know what's going on behind the scenes, but it seemed like a team effort rather than you do this now and this is my vision. You just translate it into pictures. So I think that is a good move. I'm trying to think of other. I think like books are a whole other different sort of section of it all, but like I think the High Republic experiment is very interesting, and it's for many different reasons. They're not all the books are interesting to me, but like it has hooked me in the sense of like reading all of it at all the different facets of it. I'm like, oh, this is very interesting, and so it's like this is a fun idea. So
yeah, I agree with that. I think what has worked for me, I think when they stick to there's been a lot of weird things that have worked for me.
Yeah.
Like I just look at The Force Awakens. I mean, what worked in The Force Awakens? And I think it was just The Force Awakens had something that I think none of the other movies have really had.
Mm-hmm.
And that's charm. Like it had like this charm to it. And I think we've got that in Mandalorian. And but there's this, I don't know what it was. It was like whimsical. Do you know, like it was fun again. They're like, hey, Star Wars is fun again. And The Last Jedi kind of lost that, and Rise of Skywalker, everybody loves that movie, so I can't even argue there. But like that they've had like, because I love the prequels, and I know there's a lot of like 20 to 30 like 30-year-olds now that grew up with the prequels that love the prequels. But like I'm an original trilogy guy, and I know it all felt that way because of the practicals, but there was something else to it that felt more like it belonged in like my childhood beyond that. And I think it was just like there was an understanding of, I don't think there was an understanding of Luke Skywalker. We'll talk about that later. But I think like Han Solo, like other characters, I think there was a real like, I'm like, these are them, like Chewie, Han, like those were the Chewie and Han that I grew up with, right? Like, so I think they've had moments of characters, but I think what's worked the most is Baby Yoda.
Yeah,
I think, and that's the charm aspect that I'm also talking about. Is like when there are moments when they know how to tap into Star Wars, which which is, I think it's difficult when you're not George Lucas to get away with tapping into Star Wars, right? Like he's like, Jango Fett.
Yeah.
you know, and I think Grogu was one of those things where, you could, I think people, if they wanted to be cynical about it, could argue that it's all fan service, like, oh, Baby Yoda, but it makes sense in the universe. I know it's hard to, but I mean, somebody could, they would too, but it makes sense in the universe. It's a baby of a creature we've seen two of in 9 movies, and one of them was on a council for 3 seconds and then vanished forever.
Yeah.
Other than, I know Tales of the Jedi or whatever, but you know what I mean? Like that was, I think that was a genius move on their part.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you could say it's like Baby Groot, but really it's Muppet Babies. Muppet Babies is one of the first ones. It's like it's true. It's just like a tiny version. I mean, like when you think about it, it's like in like manga or anime, like one of the things that attracts a lot of people to the character drawing is like the chibi style, where it's like big eyes and they're like small. It's like everybody likes. I mean, maybe this is why we like children. They tend to be smaller versions of their parents, right? It's like, oh, it's you, but tiny. Like, so it's just like, yeah, I think you're right. I was just thinking, it's like Grogu, like the kind of character development that, like, outside of like George Lucas, like the only, like the closest thing I can think of is like Ahsoka, but that doesn't really count under the Disney era per se. And I would argue some of the does Rebels doesn't fall under does it?
That was the first thing Disney did. They got rid of Clone Wars and they gave us Rebels, and that was the first time there was
okay. Then I take it back, because I think, I mean, Ahsoka was very fan favorite from Clone Wars. I think Rebels really pushed her over the like, oh, we can keep going with this character. Like, this is interesting. Like, the character keeps building and building. So I guess like those two characters, but like in like the Disney Plus section of the Disney era, like it's kind of been like the magic is kind of gone. No disrespect to what they've done, and like Rosario Dawson's gonna be at Fan Expo, and I'm excited. Like I hope that there's a panel, like the days I'm going, she's in a panel or something like that. Like that's cool, and I think she did a great job. But just like Ahsoka, kind of the series kind of falls short. But it's like, anyways, going back to Baby Grogu, it's like, yeah, it's like, it's curious. Like that's something I'm sure Favreau's talked about it a million times, but it's just like, why that character? I mean, Yoda was notorious for like, we don't need to know what he is. He's just Yoda. That's all we need to know. So it's like, that's like dangerous territory to be like, well, what if we had a baby version of him? And then like, I mean, what they're doing with the character is enough, and they don't need to go explain anymore. I would love to see it, but at the same note, why lose the mystique? So, it's true. I think like that, like the Baby Yoda of it all is like, or Grogu is like, oh wow, amazing.
I think the Mando and Grogu movie, I don't know. Obviously, I have no idea what it's about. I don't think anyone does, but I mean, somebody does, but they're not on this chat. If it has anything to do with Grogu and where he's from, you just kind of hope George Lucas, even though George Lucas said we never know where Yoda's from, you kind of hope George Lucas was consulted. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I know it's weird because he sold it, but it's just, I don't know. I feel like that's someone you go to for those types of things. It's like, hey, even if you're just like, hey, we're going to do this, can we have your blessing? And he's like, it could be no, and then like. But the one you brought up Rebels, and that's another positive I'd like to bring up is Rebels season 1 was kind of. I remember when it first hit. That's when people first started complaining. Like I said, like they're like, it's too round. They look like cartoon characters. It's like, well, it's a cartoon.
They are.
But season 1 was okay. Like season 1 was okay. I think of Rebels, like it was passable. Like I was like, that was fine. But season 2, it really picked up.
Yeah.
Up the stakes, up the end. Like it was so much fun. And then it cruised until the end. Like it was great until the end, if I remember correctly. I think the last season wasn't as good as the second last season, maybe. But that's nitpicking. Okay. I don't remember, to be honest. I just kind of feel like I had that feeling. But I remember it got really, really solid. But more than just Rebels, the stuff on the animation side of Star Wars has been very solid since the acquisition. Like everybody got mad Clone Wars was gone, but we got Rebels, we got Clone Wars came back, Bad Batch, and Visions, and then the kid stuff also. But that's like Clone Wars gave us the Bad Batch, and the Bad Batch started slow. And I haven't seen the new season, but it seems like everybody was on board with this final season, and I can't wait to watch it. I'm going to soon, but everybody's gushing over that last season. So I think a big positive, and maybe you can speak more to it, is just the animation.
Yeah, I mean, I've noticed in the last little bit, like watching it on, I have a 4K television, so I'm like, oh, that looks cool, but like that's just might be just due to my television. Yeah, you know, it's easy to digest because it's like, I mean, Visions goes in a different direction, but that is like an anthology style sort of thing. But like Bad Batch looks kind of like Rebels, looks kind of like Clone Wars. Tales of the Jedi looks a little bit like Clone Wars, so it's Tales of Jedi, Tales of the Empire. Like, I think it's smart to keep that style, so you're like, oh, okay, cool. Like, even if it's like I don't really put them all together, it's like you could get it like that connection. So yeah, it's just funny. Like they take more chances on certain animation storylines than they do in live action, which is like, why not? But it's a no brainer. I think I think they need to, like, Tales of the Jedi and Tales of the Empire were just like, I don't know how successful they were, but like for me as a fan, I was like, oh, this is cool. I know some people didn't like some of the storylines, but it's just like the idea behind it is interesting. And this is a good way to be like, well, what about this character that we don't have enough time or reason to put in their own show or give them more live action screen time? But like, well, what about this? You know, like, so I think animation kind of allows for more freedom, I suppose. So yeah, I think it's good because it's just like there's always a reason to watch it, and it's, I don't know, it's yeah, I love it. So it's a good positive.
You brought up something. They take more chances with their animation stories. I wonder if they would take the chances with live action, if people would be more receptive to them. But there's also a thing with animation where I think people, I don't know, like a switch in the brain where people allow, where when you're watching animation, you allow certain things to happen, whereas when you watch live action, it's like you don't. Do you know what I mean? Like things that happen in animation have happened in live action, we would be like, that's stupid. And I'm not knocking animation. It's just that's just, I think I think when I say you, as the royal you, but we view them very differently.
Yeah.
And it's not on purpose.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just like the real question is like, is anybody actually watching these things? You know, like that's hard to tell. Like Disney Plus seems to be pretty cutthroat with its projects. It's like, if you didn't do it, we're not doing you again. So, and most of the things we talked about get renewed on a regular basis. So, yeah.
Oh, Star Wars, you never know. Like they don't seem to, like Star Wars and Marvel. They haven't really cut those two though, right? Like they've both been safe. Willow, on the other hand, was
exactly
like, you're out of here. But Willow was a weird decision.
Yeah,
it'd be on like so many different levels. Ron Prasek saying you give animation more leniency, which could be true. I think there's just something, we're just geared differently when we watch it, I think.
Yeah, are we like giving it more leniency, or do people not care? Like that's the thing. Like I agree with Ron, but like what exactly is the reality of it? It's like, does no one care? They're like, or they like, this isn't for the adults that are commenting online. These are for kids that are ideally the audience we're looking for. Which, when you think about it, like the storylines are not for kids. Like, but it's strange.
Have you watched the new Batman cartoon yet?
Yeah, I watched I think the first 2 or 3 episodes. And I like it so far, but it's like one of those shows I feel you have to fully pay attention to because it deserves your attention.
You have to pay attention. Yeah, for sure. Because that one's not for kids, but it's kind of for kids, but it's not for kids. Yeah, like there's, but it's like 13 plus. Because I remember, there's a few times I'm like, who? Like, there's, and I am actually enjoying. There's some stuff in it I'm not crazy about. There's some stuff that I'm like this. Like, I'm actually interested in watching. Like, I would like watching it. But at one point I'm like, who is this made for? Like, I'm like, who is this made for? And I'm not even done. It's just like what? And I noticed it was 13 plus in Canada is the 8. I'm like, I guess I don't like. I don't know. I thought it was like I there's a lot of it that I think is really cool and whatnot. I like the new Batman voice though. I'll say that. I like.
Yeah,
I think he's doing a good. I think he's doing a good job. Well, let's stop talking about Batman then. How about some stuff? Anything else positive you want to bring up before we get to the stuff that really brings in the money on this channel?
I mean, this is gonna make the trolls roll their eyes, but I'm just glad for everything because it's just like we didn't have anything for the longest time, and it's just like Disney Plus as a whole is just nice to have. You know, like I don't have to think about, oh, where did I put my files of Star Wars videos or films, or like where did I put my DVDs or Blu-rays? Like it's all there, and like trying to think what I feel like I'm watching something on there now, but anyways, it's just like having that is just like it's a positive that we just live in this world now. You know what I mean? Like so.
Did you watch Planet of the Apes yet?
No, not yet. I was Riam's like, I'll watch it with you. I'm like, are you gonna watch it with me? He's like, yeah, we'll watch. He's like, I gotta be in the mood for it. So I might watch it next week.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear what you think. Yeah, I think I loved Book of Boba Fett. Everybody hates that. There's things about it that I wasn't crazy about, but I liked it, and I like the meme of the kids playing in the Star Wars toy box, and it's like Favreau and Filoni as kids playing them,
Yeah.
and they're like, and I like, for me, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again, is these shows on Disney Plus for me are the novels we got in the 90s. They are the side stories. They're just little adventures to tide us over until we get the main course, which hopefully we get on time, but we're going to find out some negatives now, Brock. Everybody likes to talk about negatives, some stuff that completely sucked. What stuff could they have, like, what have been the weaknesses of the Disney era of Star Wars in your opinion? I'll just put Ron's up first. How about that? Because this is a big one.
Yeah.
It says there's no plan. Everything is just thought. Everything is just threw it against the wall to see what will stick.
I agree. And to jump off your idea of kids in a play sandbox, it's like they're just sort of like, we have an idea. It's like we know Star Wars is loved, so let's just keep adding to it instead of let's develop our own Star Wars, because it's just like, people will watch it if you slap Star Wars on it. People are gonna watch it. Somebody, like a fair amount of people are gonna watch it, and it's like you have. Like, I don't even use the word lore. You have the concept of environment, of society, of science and engineering, and just how things work and how people interact, and all the little minutia. You have the galaxy figured out. So just take that and make your own story. And that's, I think, why I like High Republic, because again, it's like the animation. It's like, does nobody care? Because like nobody cares, and they can just do whatever they want, sort of thing. It's like High Republic, great concept in a book. They have a villain that makes sense, and they have a problem that Jedi cannot. Like, I mean, that's what it comes down to. A storyline has to have, what can't the Jedi stop? The unstoppable cops of the universe, and it's inevitably the Sith or some unseen thing that we haven't experienced. So it's like the story's written. You just have to jazz it up in your own way. So it's just like, stop worrying about, oh, how does this link to Luke or Anakin or Obi-Wan? And it's like, and I think that's what Ron's trying to get at. It's like, you're a massive company. Hire these people that have good ideas and have them work in a room. It's like, not what story do you want to tell? What kind of franchise are we going to launch? It's like, what are we getting to? We've said this for years now. It's like, why is there no Feige? No distracted KK, but like Feige's Infinity Saga works because it's like, we start here, we end here. Maybe it's not exactly that organized. Well, you know what I mean?
I mean, But Feige, and I said this about like J.K. Rowling and George Lucas, and Feige, I think fits into this where if you watch Iron Man, I don't think the Infinity Stones were on the forefront of anyone's mind when they made Iron Man. You know what I mean? But at some point after Captain America, wherever, they're like, you know what we could do, and we could make this, and like I think they retconned it is a word that no one likes to hear. But I think George Lucas, I think the great storytellers do that though. They figure out how to use what they have. And maybe even while they're developing, they're like, you know what we could do, and then they fit it in. So no, but you're right about Feige. They don't have someone like that.
Yeah.
And I heard, and I've heard, I don't know if this is true because I'm not in the. They don't invite me to Lucasfilm meetings, Brock. I don't know if you know that, but I heard though that when Hedlund pitched the Acolyte, that Kathleen Kennedy's like, okay, you pitch the Acolyte, just make it your own. Don't worry about anything else. Just make it your own. And that sounds like, oh, cool, make it your own. But it also sounds like, I've said this where I think there's a lot of things about the Acolyte that I think fell flat, but I think that Leslie Headland loves Star Wars, appreciates Star Wars, and has an understanding of Star Wars. So this is it. So I don't think it was necessarily the case, but there isn't a problem where it's like, but you're making a Star Wars though, like the directive should be bring your touch to this, and these are the and I saw a thing with John Krasinski and The Quiet Place, and I'm not crazy about The Quiet Place movies, but apparently this new one that came out, he gave like the writers or filmmakers, whatever, he's like, these are the rules, do what you want, but these are the rules. And I think Star Wars, maybe it just needs a rule book. It's like, these are the Star Wars rules. If you get stabbed with a lightsaber, you're dead. Like, like there needs to be, because I think that's like, and I think, like I said, I think Headland, for all the problems of the Acolyte, I don't think Star Wars was the problem. But it's like, but I think like the other things have been, I think, and it's like, what are the rules of Star Wars? And maybe that's the thing, because it does feel like, I talked about this too. It's just like, what's the point of Ahsoka, Brock? Like,
that
what
is
was
exactly right.
Like, what was the, like I said, what's the point of Acolyte? But what's also the point of Ahsoka?
Yeah,
Ahsoka kind of happens. It happens in a time period where we know where the time period leads to. So there has to be something there, but we're not even given a hint at what it is. It's Thrawn, but Thrawn could but what? Why? Like, that's the thing, is like, I don't understand that, and that's one thing I'm looking forward to with the Rey movies. Like, at least we're getting past everything, and we I don't know where that's gonna go, but that's a good thing on that one. But these shows, like, why did I watch Ahsoka? Why did I spend 8 weeks watching Ahsoka? I still don't know, and I liked a lot of it, and then it fell flat. But that's frustrating.
Yeah, it's just sort of like the why of Ahsoka seems to be, well, you guys like this character, so here we keep going. I'm like, but you need a why. It's how you go about it. Like, when you look at Visions, it's just like, that's an interesting show because it doesn't. Well, I guess it's going against what we're saying, because there's parts in it that's like, it's going against the rules of Star Wars in certain times. It's just sort of
but it's one-offs.
But it's one-offs. But it's just also like, it still feels like Star Wars, especially the first season. Well, I mean, the first season, the first episode is like, what if Star Wars was a Ronin, like a character like feudalist Japan set in that, or like the one with the two twins that look like Luke and Leia. It's just like, those are like, that still felt like Star Wars, even though it didn't really look exactly like Star Wars and didn't certainly follow some rules. So it's just like, I think it needs it. There's ways around it. It's just it's ridiculous. It's sort of like, I think one thing I was gonna say is like, maybe we've already said it. It's just like, there is no plan. It's just like this. Like Ron said, would you agree that as an era, the sequel era is a big weakness?
I was just gonna get to that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just sort of like, I want to say no, but at the same note, I think I know what Ron's saying. It's just sort of like, what was the plan? Like, granted, things happen. What is Princess Leia's real name? Carrie
Fisher.
Carrie Fisher. Sorry, I'm tired. Carrie Fisher passed away. You can't control that. They fire a director or let go of a director. You can't. It is what it is. You can't be like JJ in 2015 or whatever it was, making Force Awakens and being like, "Oh, I'm going to make the third one." It's like you had no idea, right? I think like if you knew where it was all going to end up, it's like, would you not then have either JJ do all three or JJ and Ryan Johnson like, look, this is going to be yours. Work this out, like make it work. And it's like we can create all this gossip of like, oh, they didn't like this, they didn't like that, but it just seems disjointed at times. I don't know. What do you think?
I think the thing with the prequels is, and I know a lot of people hate the prequels. A lot of people, like I said, now love the prequels. But the thing with the prequels is, it the flaws of the prequels were never. It didn't know where it was going.
Yeah.
Like it always knew where it was going. It had other flaws. The sequels, and I know the Force Awakens is great because it got a lot of new fans and whatever. And the Last Jedi it did stuff, but like it just when you if you watch all 9 of them. If you stop at Return of the Jedi, what changes?
Yeah.
Rey, like Rey getting a movie, maybe that might happen. Like, there's nothing changes from
Yeah. It's
like it literally is like, yeah, you're like, you just repeated the last, like it's that's the, and it's like the Ahsoka story. It's like, what was why did we just do that? Like, why did Palpatine come back?
Especially
like,
if you,
like,
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, just seems like it's just laziness.
It's especially with Ahsoka where you literally create a storyline where like we're going to a whole different galaxy and you're like, oh, okay, there we go. Like now you can do whatever you want, and then nothing really happens.
It's the same galaxy, and then they come back to the galaxy. It's
exactly.
Like, what was the
and
point?
It's just like everyone's like bent out of shape of like there's possibly a Sith and an acolyte, but then there's 2 Jedi evil force wielders with their 2 villain characters, and no one really gets bent out of shape. They're like, oh well, they could be, what do you call them? Not executors.
Oh,
what are they called? Inquisitors. It's just like, why are you mad now instead of over there? Like it doesn't really make sense. It's like we need a villain. We just need a villain, and they have to be like, and like I said earlier, it's like you have this group of people called the Jedi that are basically unstoppable. So it's like, unless you make them the villains, what they did in the Acolyte, so maybe that's something new, but it's like, if you don't make them the villains, who are they fighting against? It was like an evil version of themselves. It's like Superman. It's like Superman can only fight against himself or some unforeseen weakness, a green stone. You know what I mean? Like, so... I don't know, but I feel like I totally deviated from what we're talking about. It's just like there needs to be a plan and there needs to be a why. And maybe those are different things, or maybe they're the same thing. I'm not sure.
I think you have to I think they're different, but they coexist. Like you sit down, you say, why are we making these movies? Like, what is the point? Like, why are we doing this? You figure that out, and then you make your plan. And you could be like, and the thing is, I think the sequel trilogy, let's just go. The Last Jedi is the one that the fan base went like that, right? Like that was the one where like that. And the reason why the fan base went like that was because, and this is why when we do our rankings, I always have Force Awakens very low. That movie doesn't do anything to tell you what's going on or set anything up. It's like there's a mysterious guy and everything's a mystery there. Nothing's set up. It's been 20 years since we just saw our characters in the timeline. We don't know what's going on, but they're like, everybody's miserable, and so they don't really do anything. And then they make Luke Skywalker be this, like, he's the hero, he's the best thing ever. We wait an entire movie to get him, and then we don't get him. They just like, forget it. You have to wait 2 years. Then when we get to him, he's like, I don't want to be a Jedi. He throws a lightsaber. So like I thought, for me personally, I didn't have a problem with the way Luke was. But you figured it out like a year before on the podcast. You're like, what if Luke's crazy? And I was like, well, I hope not now. And then they did exactly what you said. And I just thought, for me, a lot of people hate it, obviously, and a lot of people think that that's more interesting. I think it was a lazy way to go. I think and it's lazy. And if you don't believe me on lazy, every freaking requel or whatever, like sequel, whatever they call it, they're all miserable. Every single time they bring the old cast back, except for Beverly Hills Cop, they're miserable. They're always miserable. It's the easiest thing to do is make them miserable. And then you have an arc. You're like, oh, now he's not miserable anymore. Everyone. Anyway, so that was my thing with that. But But if you have a plan and you tell us the plan in The Force Awakens, right? Like you're like, bam, because the difference between The Force Awakens and A New Hope, because even though they're the same movie and is A New Hope came out and we had no backstory on Star Wars at all. Force Awakens comes out, we have 6 other movies of backstories and all these other decades of books that we read. There's like a history there. And if you would just tell us what the story was, tell us what the plan was in The Force Awakens, then The Last Jedi, if it goes like this, then we're like, well, it's doing that to get to that. Like we know where we're going, but we never got that. So I think what it was people that really hate that movie just weren't along for the ride because they in The Force Awakens had promised one ride, and then taking on a different ride. And then The Rise of Skywalker takes you on like a roller coaster, like it's like you're on like Universal Studios on one ride, and then you're on like a roller coaster on the next ride. Like they're very different things. Yeah. And I just think, it left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, just the way they did not work together.
It's the terrible part. It's like these movies are too dependent on like we're gonna do another one after this, or we're gonna do another season. It's just like, try to make it self-contained. Like I said this a bunch of times. Like it's like Acolyte and Ahsoka, they could have both benefited from at least one more episode, at least, right? Like it's just like it was just sort of like, now what? It's like there's like I think what Ron was saying before. It's like we throw things at a wall and see what sticks, and I'm like, it's kind of true. It's like the ideas are there, but what is the end result? And that has to be in that project. The end of that season, the end of the movie, the conclusion of that movie. Yes, we want more. Like it's just like it's silly because it's like we are Star Wars fans. We like Star Wars. We will watch whatever you want. I'm very close to watching the Young Jedi Adventures because I'm just like I just want to see what it is like. And like I think we've said like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if those characters from the kids' cartoon become characters in the live action at some point? That would be fun. It's not so it's like, but then it's like you kind of get you. I think also Ron says like you paint yourself into a corner. It's like it's kind of true. It's just like the biggest mistake in Star Wars was like making more Star Wars. It's like you make A New Hope. You call it Star Wars because that's all it is, Star Wars. And then that's it. We're done. And then you make more. And I know Empire Strikes Back is one of the best sequels ever. But don't forget, critics panned it originally, right?
So Empire Strikes Back ruined Star Wars, but the freaking
exactly.
The Vader twist, though, Now everybody's got to be behind a mask and everything's a twist. Yep. No, it doesn't. Yeah. It doesn't.
It's so counterproductive to say it. It's like it's ruined it. But it's like it kind of has because there's an expectation now that will never be set because you saw it as a child or like a young adult.
Do you think Luke Skywalker is Kylo Ren? I think you need to stop thinking. Is what my response was. Like it's like stop it. No, Kylo Ren. I think it was obvious who Kylo Ren was before. Like, because I think we knew Adam Driver was playing Kylo Ren, and I think we all assumed correctly that he was playing Han Solo's kid. Like, it was just like, but like, no, it's not Luke Skywalker. Like, and no, it's not. Who did they? Star Killer's not is not the Inquisitor in Ahsoka because Star Killer doesn't exist. Like, Star Killer has never been brought into canon, never mentioned. Why would it be Star Killer? Like, why would Mephisto be in WandaVision when like because Mephisto does not exist. There's no Mephisto, which is something that annoyed me with WandaVision when they're like, you are the Scarlet Witch. It's like, but that doesn't exist either. Like it doesn't exist. You can't things just can't happen because it would be cool for it to happen. And freaking Empire Strikes Back did that. So I blame Star Wars on Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's absolutely correct. It's just sort of like the biggest mistake we ever made was making more Star Wars. It's just sort of like, here it is, done. But it's just
to your point, though. Mm-hmm. Sorry, go on.
I think the problem is it's like the content, the galaxy, the characters are just so enjoyable that you want more. Yeah. But then it's the problem is like he's like, I want more of this. I want to buy all the things, and you put it up, and it's just like, now what? It's like you're sort of like on the rush, the hunt for that feeling again. But then when you never feel it again, because you can only feel that sort of thing once, it's like you feel disappointed. So it's like, well, Like, I don't know. I can't make your brain reprogram. It's like drugs. It's like the first time you get high, you're like, oh wow, like, or maybe you have a bad experience and it ruins everything for you. But like when you get high, like you're chasing that high for the rest of your life. If you form an addiction, you know what I mean? So it's like Star Wars is an addiction, just like Marvel. It's just sort of like, I don't know. Sorry.
No, I have just two things. One, the Rey movie. It would benefit the Rey movie if they make it a standalone movie, a beginning, middle, and an end.
Yep.
But they leave themselves wiggle room for a sequel, like New Hope, right? Like you're like, this is it, but then the second one comes, and then you can get stronger and find your footing and all that stuff. My other point I forgot, so I'm not going to mention it.
Well, it's just like bringing it back to our original question. It's just like, what have they done wrong? And I think that's not looking at it as a whole of like, what was it in the 70s and 80s? What was it in the 2000s? What was it now? What is it in the future? Like make a plan. It doesn't have to exactly become what it is, but we love Kevin Feige because of the Infinity War, but then also like Infinity Saga. It's like, but also now it's like, oh, what do we do next? Oh, bring Robert Downey Jr. back, and it's like, why? Like, there's nobody else. I don't know.
Well, there are only 7 actors in Hollywood. I don't know.
Only 7, and Anya Taylor-Joy was busy.
But the other point I wanted to make, and I think they really focus on this, and I don't know if they're going to keep doing it, but I think everybody needs to get away from this. And I might, if anyone's still watching 46 minutes into this, I will get hate for this. But the truth is, there's that saying, Star Wars is for everyone. And I know what it's trying to say, but it's not for everyone. There's people who just don't like Star Wars.
Yeah,
and if you try to make a Star Wars for the people that don't like Star Wars, you're not making Star Wars anymore. So just let them leave. Like, they don't want to be here. Yeah. That's fine. We can go hang out at the Marvel water cooler or at the Bike Riders water cooler or at the Pianist water cooler, whatever water cooler they're at. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, they don't, like, not everyone has to like Star Wars. I mean, you don't have to force it on everybody. If somebody doesn't like it, that's fine. Like, just buy. Like, it's not like rude. It's just like, I don't like everything. Like, there's movies that are massive. I don't like Avatar. People love Avatar. I'm not going to an Avatar party, and I don't want James Cameron to be like the next Avatar. We really need James from Rebel Scum Pod because he's a big fan. he's from Niagara, right? But he's like we really like. He's not gonna like. Don't just make Star Wars. Just make Star Wars. Star Wars. Focus on that. Don't people because you want to get new fans. They're gonna come. Stay true to yourself, Star Wars. Yeah. Just stay. Don't try to change something. But at the same time, if you want to go YA, go YA. If you want to go kids, go kids. Because there's different demographics. But don't change what Star Wars is to try to get someone in that doesn't want to be here anyway. Mm-hmm. That's it. Subscribe.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just very interesting. Yeah. That being said, it's like, am I giving up on Star Wars? No. Not because I have a podcast that I do with my friend. It's one of the only reasons I can see my friend on a regular basis. But it's just like, you know what I mean? It's like, no, I like Star Wars. I don't need 5 shirts that have Star Wars on, but I do because it brings me happiness. And I'm always like, oh, what are we going to see next? Like it's, I mean, I'm a huge Stephen King fan, and I'm saying that because I'm looking at my books on the shelf, but it's just like, they're not all good. These a lot of books. They're not all good. Not that some. I think sometimes we forget. It's like maybe this story isn't for me. Yeah. And as viewers, we forget that. It's like it doesn't speak to me. That's cool. The stories. Everyone likes stories.
There's Andor now, and everyone's like, everything should be like Andor. Why? No, I know people that love Star Wars that don't like Andor because they don't feel like Andor is Star Wars enough. Mm-hmm. You can never win. Just stay true to yourself and just keep doing what you're doing. And eventually we're like you always say it, like you just said it now, but there's so much that at some point we're not going to like something. Yeah. And that ratio might even change. If they keep pumping out shows and movies, that ratio might go like this. Yeah. Because it's, because when it was just George Lucas, it was pretty easy to figure out if you're going to like it or not. because he was pretty. I mean, it was, but now it's not that anymore, and it's the Disney era, as we said at the beginning, and things have changed, and I don't have a problem with it. Anything else you want to say before we go to the odds?
No. I like Star Wars. It's like if I have the desire to watch certain content over and over again, success. I'm not the person that makes you $1 billion, but like,
as much as the Accolade wasn't my favorite, I'm still like, I would have watched it the week after it ended.
Yeah.
We have one thing from Ron here we'll get to before the odds. At the end of Return of the Jedi, you knew a new republic would be created after Traz. We have no idea what is to come. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. All right. All right. Ready for the odds?
Let's do it.
You have to be. No, I have to hit the button.
Successfully navigating an asteroid field is approximately 3,720 to 1.
Never tell me the odds.
Never.
Never Tell Me the Odds, brought to you and me by patreon.com/Rebel Scum Podcast. If you like what we do, why don't you support us so we can do this for another 8 years? We love Star Wars and we want to be the positive podcast popping up on your computer. Pop, 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 pop. You like that on my microphone? So if you like what we do,
it actually didn't pop too bad.
Support us at Patreon Podcast. No, patreon.com/Rebel Scum Podcast and become one of the wonderful people that thinks we're great just for being us. And those people are Heidi Feder, executive producer, Barry Brophy, Dennis Allen, Randy Kenobi, Mary Kristen Aton, Dale Erdman, Phil Staniforth, Rez, Scott D,
Josh Price, Matt W, Frank Perkins, Neil Lowry, Cosmic Girl 02, Gleek Play 1, Denoners, Disney Desi, Charlotte, Ron Prasak, and Jeff Wilson.
What?
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you so much.
Thanks, everybody. Really, really appreciate everything.
Yeah.
I just got a message from my wife. Our outdoor cameras are not working, and the cat is. I got to unplug it. All right. Well, I got work to do when we're done. All right. Never Tell Me the Odds. The first odd. Will we get Vision Season 3?
Yes. That's my answer. I'm gonna go 60%.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think I'm gonna say 57%. I don't know why you wouldn't. I feel like people really enjoyed the first two, and I think people watch them, and they're cool looking.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
It'd be smart to do it because it's just like you give these smaller animation houses. I mean, I know nothing of the history of half of these people that work on these projects, but it's like you give this ability to make a Star Wars thing in their style, and you'd be like, why wouldn't you continue it on to just keep animation growing and growing and growing, and like maybe it'll pay off someday.
Yeah. I don't know. It just seems like we just said don't get new fans, but that's a way to get people who like it's a different, but it's also a different thing because it's not connected to anything. So it's kind of like, next on Mando and Grogu will end on a cliffhanger. The Mando and Grogu movie will end on a cliffhanger, setting up season 4 of The Mandalorian or another movie.
I'm gonna go full Brock on this because anything is possible when it comes to Lucasfilm. It's like, yeah, we'll do that, sure.
As my internet cuts out, I'm gonna go 27%. I think it would be a big mistake if they ended it on a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
And our final odd, the Rey movie will be episode 10.
Has a movie come out since Rise of Skywalker? No.
Nope.
So I think regardless if they want to or not, I think people are just going to call it episode 10. So I'm going to go 95%.
I'm gonna go 70. I think it's dumb not to, but they might not because they make dumb decisions sometimes.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe not. Episode 10, Brock. And then if it's a hit, make episode 11 and then rename it episode 10. That's the game plan. All right, do you have the news?
I mean, they've yeah, I mean, they've renamed a Star Wars movie in the past already, so what's new? It's like anything is possible.
Exactly.
And yes, I do have the news. I do.
Do you have news? All right, here we go to Hollow News. Hollow News.
Boom! Hollow News, the news you need to know right now. Ubisoft announced its plans for a bevy of new premium content that will come to Outlaws after it launches later this month, alongside a series of alternate outfit packs for the Outlaw smuggler hero Kay Vess and her animal companion Nyx, and a bonus mission featuring Jabba the Hutt available at launch. Purchase of the Outlaws Season Pass will receive access to 2 new story packs featuring missions with familiar Star Wars faces. The first, Wild Card, is due for release in fall 2024 and sees Kay infiltrate a high-stakes Sabak tournament only to cross paths with Lando Calrissian and find herself embroiled in a much more dangerous game. The second, A Pirate's Fortune, out in spring 2025, sees Kay team up with everybody's favorite Hondo and Naka as the latter settle old scores with a ruthless gang of pirates. Like, boom, that's great. I wish I could play this game. I do not have a current system, but that sounds awesome. Hondo lives again. There's a new Black Series sale going on. A pretty insane buy one, get one free deal happening right now at GameStop on nearly 400 collectibles that cover a wide range of fandoms. However, the fact that several Hasbro Black Series Star Wars electronic helmets are eligible for the deal is surprising. As the time of me finding this and cutting it paste onto my phone, the lineup includes the options listed below. They are the Black Series, the Mandalorian Death Watch helmet, the Black Series, the Mandalorian Axe Woes helmet, and the Black Series Artillery Stormtrooper helmet. So you can get those for like the price of one. Wow, that's a lot of helmets. And then our final story coming back here to Canada. Fans of the beloved Star Wars series may be more familiar with the phrase's English translation, "May the Force be with you," but soon viewers will get to experience the original 1970 Hollywood hit dubbed in the Ojibwa language. Star Wars A New Hope, or Anagong Migadig A New Hope, is being released for the first time in Ojibwe, also known as Anishinaabe Mowin. Sorry for mangling that. It's the second time the original Star Wars has been officially translated into an indigenous language, with the first being Navajo in 2013. The project is a result of a collaboration between the Dakota Ojibwe Tribal Council and the University of Manitoba, Disney, Lucasfilm, and APTN. Producers chose Ojibwa because it's the most spoken indigenous language in Manitoba, Ontario, and Minnesota, with about 320,000 speakers across Canada and the United States. 3 translators led the project, and it started them with rewatching the film, followed by long hours around a dining table, poring over transcripts. So that's pretty sweet. It's always nice to see new versions of our beloved films and recognizing everyone's ability and their language and just understanding each other. And this has been your Hollow News.
Boom, boom.
Boom.
That's how I kill time until I get to the 2-shot. 2-shot. We got a comment from Ron. I can attest that by 1983 and Return of the Jedi, we knew that Star Wars was meant to be 9 episodes. Not only did the sequels not know what they were, but they never gave us an idea of what's to come.
Sure.
Top 5?
Top 5.
Top 5. Standing by. You used to say standing by in the glory days.
Glory days in a young boy's heart. Glory days.
Now we can't monetize.
That was under 15 seconds. We're good.
The boss is like, I know those guys.
Oh.
He's going to be on the show next week. Bruce Springsteen, right here, performing live during Hollow News.
Yeah, he's going to sing Hollow News.
He's going to sing Hollow News. Hollow News. Top 5 animation episodes. Top 5 animation episodes. My number 5, it's a cheat. No, it's not. No, my number 4 is a cheat. Number 5 is The World Between the World of Rebels. Good episodes, but I hate The World Between Worlds because it creates a crutch for future writers to hold on to. But it was done very well in the Ahsoka show. But World Between Worlds is my number 5.
Did you find the titles for your episodes, or are you just gonna describe them?
I Googled them.
Oh, okay. I did not think of writing titles or looking up the titles because there's no way I remember. My number 5 is going to be when they meet up with Wolf and Gregor and Rex in Rebels season 2, where they're like, "Oh, they're still alive," and it's like, "Oh, the clones are still interesting even if they age." So it's like, I think that's the
premiere, I think.
Yeah, it's the premiere. Like first episode, it's just like, oh right, like these characters can live on past their initial story. So it's like, I feel like that episode's kind of just like Bad Batch. Even though Bad Batch technically happens before that, it's just like the idea of like, what if these clones were allowed to just be whoever they were with no rules?
That was for me when Rebels kind of figured out what it was with that episode. My number 4 is a cheat. It's like 3 episodes, but I'm doing the whole Mortis arc. Clone Wars, the Mortis arc.
Yeah, it's definitely my list, but I'm going for my number 4. I'm gonna do anything with Hondo. No, that's too. I'm gonna do. As you can see, I didn't put them in order. Just like, I like this episode and this episode and this episode. I'm gonna go. You already said it, so I'm gonna say it now. The World Between Worlds. I like it. Really grabbed my imagination, and we were hoping for more in Ahsoka because it felt like they were trying to do that, but they weren't. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a great one. And Ahsoka, I think, like I said, I think it ended up translating well to live action, actually.
Yeah.
My number 3 is Bad Batch episode 1. I really like the Kanan beginning also, but I like the first episode of the Bad Batch. I thought it was a strong start to the series.
My number 3 is going to be the first episode of season 3 of Rebels, where like Ezra's kind of like unleashing his like Jedi powers. He has a haircut. He pushes an ATSD off. I
think that's the season 3 premiere, isn't it?
Yeah, season 1, or sorry, season 1, episode 1. Yeah,
it's a good one. Great. Yeah, that was when I was like, oh, is Ezra going to the dark side?
No.
My number 2 is a cheat also, and that's the Twilight of the Apprentice episodes of Rebels. Ahsoka versus Vader. Let's do it. Maul, everything. Great stuff. That was supposed to be my number 1, but it's number 2 now because I put them out of order.
Nice. Shoot. I had my number 2 in my head. What the frick was it? Oh, you know what? I'm gonna throw in a Bad Batch, so I'm gonna forget whatever number 2 was, and I'm gonna go Bad Batch season 2. I think it's the final episode, or it's the second last episode where they're trying to escape the Empire on that like trolley thing, and Tech falls to his death to save them. And it's like, oh,
nice.
Well, that was crazy. So,
and again, like it's stakes are important, like not the ones you eat.
Yeah.
And my number 1, twin sons from Rebels. Twin sons. Darth Maul visits Tatooine.
Oh yeah.
Is bested by Obi-Wan Kenobi, and he's like, "Who is he? He's the chosen one."
My number 1 is Mortis.
Whoa! What?
Like, wow! What? I mean, it's pretty wild that neither one of us mentioned like Darth Maul coming back to life or Vader fighting Ahsoka. Like,
I did. Vader fighting Ahsoka was my number 2.
Oh, sorry. What? Anyway,
yeah, it was that episode. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. Maybe I named it wrong, but that's the one that I meant. Whether or not that's the right one, I don't know.
Gotcha.
But yeah, no, Maul coming back. I chose Maul's death instead. I also, one that I wanted to put on was where they find the Bendu, because I just love the Bendu.
Yeah.
I am the Bendu.
Yeah. Like, just the mystical part of the Force. Like, I don't understand why they're not spending more time with it, but what do I know?
I think, yeah, anyway, I think that's what George Lucas wanted to do with his sequels, was spend more of that time. And I don't know if people want to see that, Brock. I think.
I don't know either, yeah.
I'm not sure they want to. All right, this is episode 331 of the Rebel Scum podcast. It's getting late. We should wrap it up. Anything else you want to say, Brock?
No, not really. Star Wars. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for watching. Thanks for the live chat. It's great to see you guys there talking, having a good time. Brock, until next time, give us a like and subscribe. Brock, you were always a scum.
Rebel Scum, positive podcast.
Bags, thanks for watching. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up on our video. As always, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Rebel Scum Podcast, for all the latest videos.